What we all feared is the case. Brevin Jordan will miss the entirety of the 2025 regular season. He injured that same knee that he injured last year. Prayers up to number 9. Hopefully Brevin can go back even stronger next year. I know he worked his tail off to get back on the football field this year, but sometimes God has other plans. So hopefully, Brevin, you're doing all right. And just know the city of Houston is behind you. But coming up on today's program, some tight end replacements for this season. Because the Texans, they already made a corresponding move after placing Brevin Jordan on IR, which they went ahead and signed offensive tackle Connor McDermott. He was actually already getting run with the 2 because of the amount of injuries on the offensive line. But the Texans already made one roster move. But it looks like they're not done there because Aaron Wilson also tweeted out the Texans are expected to bring in another tight end for depth per sources with Brevin Jordan's season-ending injury. So I'm going to look at some free agent and trade options for the Houston Texans. Right now, the Texans tight end depth chart looks a little something like this. Dalton Schultz and Cade Stover, tight end 1, tight end 2. You have Irv Smith Jr. as one of the backups. Dalton Keene, the Texans signed recently. Luke Lachey, the 7th-round pick out of Iowa. And you have fullback tight end Jakob Johnson listed as a tight end, but we all know he is a fullback for this Texans team. So what say you? Do the Texans need to go out and add another tight end? Give me a yes. Give me a no down in the comment section. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get hit with the YouTube ad break, all good. Scroll on down and give me your answer. Do the Texans need to add another tight end? First up, let's look at some free agent options at tight end, where I think this is the most likely route the Texans go. We'll get into some more fun later on in the program. But first, let's look at the best free agents that are on the market for the Houston Texans. Jordan Akins, former Houston Texan. I believe he spent his first 4 or 5 years with Houston before going to Cleveland the past 2 years. He's an option. Gerald Everett was with the Rams, but he didn't cross paths with Nick Caserio. He still was coached by Sean McVay, so maybe some connection there. But Gerald Everett, another free agent, maybe the best pass-catching free agent option out there. And Peyton Hendershot, who was with the Kansas City Chiefs last year, previously with the Dallas Cowboys. He is another free agent option that we need to keep our eyes out for. I think these 3 guys are the most likely options for the Texans to go out and make a move if they're going to add another tight end before the start of the regular season. But hey, it's my show, so let's have some fun today. I know it's been some doom and gloom the past couple days. Let's brighten it up. Let's have some fun. We're going to look at some trade options at the tight end spot. I actually messaged all of the Chat Sports office, all the different hosts of the different channels. I said, hey, is there anybody that's on the trade/cut block for your team? These are 5 names that came up. A couple of them, maybe some bigger names. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. But these are just some names that could be options for the Houston Texans if Nick Caserio wants to make one more splash. First up, maybe the one that makes the most sense for the Houston Texans, Tyler Higbee of the LA Rams. Obviously, worked with Nick Caserio the past couple of seasons, and he looks like he might be getting phased out of that Rams tight end room. They have Colby Parkinson, who looked halfway decent last year. They drafted Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. He looks like he's had a really good camp. And Davis Allen as well, a former Clemson tight end. He's looked really good as well. So Higbee getting up there in age, 32, going to turn 33. Could the Rams look to move on from him and give some of these younger guys shots on this squad? And looking at the Rams roster, they might be in need for another wide receiver. So I thought maybe a nice swap here, and with every guy, I'm going to give you a trade kind of package that would go along with it. In this one, the Texans get Tyler Higbee. The Rams receive a 7th-round pick and John Mechie. Kind of a swap for guys of might not have made the roster on either squad. Mechie on the roster bubble for the Texans, Higbee on the roster bubble for the Rams. So this is kind of a somewhat even swap in my opinion. This is trade idea number 1, and you'll see each trade idea will have a number next to it. Next up, maybe one of the most splashiest moves in this video, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. And whenever our Ravens host, Joey Peterson, messaged me, Mark Andrews, I said, wait, are you serious? And he said, yes. Mark Andrews, getting up there in age as well, has steadily declined year over year. He's still a good tight end. I mean, hell, he got 11 touchdowns last year. Maybe should have had 12 if he didn't miss that touchdown in the playoffs. But Mark Andrews is still a good tight end. And adding him to this Texans tight end room would be a hell of a splash. Over the last 4 seasons, Mark Andrews, like I said, his stats have kind of gone down year over year, and 2023, he only played 10 games. This past year, 17 games, but splitting those reps with Isaiah Likely up there in Baltimore, I think he's still a great option for this Texans team. Not what he once was, but still, I think would instantly come in and be the best tight end in our tight end room. Here's the tight end package, or the trade package for Mark Andrews. Simple. A 2026 third-round pick. And this I also ran by our Ravens host, Joey Peterson, and he said if the Ravens let Mark Andrews walk in free agency next year, they're likely to get a conditional or a compensatory 4th-round pick. So he said it would have to be more than that. A 3rd-round pick it is for the Houston Texans, and we swap just like that. I don't know if the Ravens are willing to do that because they're in all-in mode, just like the Texans, trying to reach a Super Bowl with quarterback Lamar Jackson. So I don't think it really makes sense for them to get rid of one of his, safety blanket targets in Mark Andrews. If I was the Ravens, I would just let him walk. But hey, our Ravens host sent me Mark Andrews, so here you go with Mark Andrews. Next up, Luke Schoonmaker, and this would be, trading for a guy who was drafted high in the NFL draft, a former 2nd-round pick out of Michigan, has not lived up to the hype whatsoever, has not really had a ton of production at the NFL level. Last year, 27 receptions, 241 yards, 1 touchdown for Schoonmaker, and the Cowboys have multiple tight ends that have kind of passed him on the depth chart. So him being a guy that the Cowboys might just go ahead and cut, this would be my trade package for him. It would be a conditional 7th-round pick for Luke Schoonmaker. The condition would be probably something around playing time or the amount of snaps that he plays. If he's able to start a certain number of games for the Houston Texans, it could turn into a 6th-round pick. But for right now, a 7th-round pick for Luke Schoonmaker, sure. You're betting on a guy who had high potential before. Maybe you can turn him around with Nick Caserio, who's a really good tight end coach in the NFL, now the Texans offensive coordinator. Let's go to another name. This one's been thrown out a ton, and I talked to our Raiders Report host, Mitchell Renz. He said, probably not likely, but the Texans have a couple pieces, or one piece in particular, that I think the Raiders might be very interested in. Michael Mayer, another former 2nd-round pick out of Notre Dame, and the Raiders went ahead and drafted Brock Bowers in round 1 last year, and he has totally overshadowed Mayer completely. Mayer is the tight end 2. He has no shot of being tight end 1 with Brock Bowers. Maybe the Raiders want to work in more 2 tight end sets, but unless you're living under a rock, you saw this past month, the Raiders released Christian Wilkins, which really hurt their defensive line. The one thing the Texans have, a ton of defensive line depth. So I got a little tricky here, and this is my trade idea for Michael Mayer. The Texans would receive tight end Michael Mayer and defensive back Trey Taylor, a safety, so it adds a little depth to the Texans secondary. They went ahead and added Jalen Mills. They get another guy in Trey Taylor with this trade package. And then the Raiders receive Tim Settle, defensive tackle, which, last year of his deal, the Texans have a bunch of good defensive linemen. I wouldn't want to trade Tim Settle, but if the Texans are looking to add a couple pieces, I think Settle would be some decent trade bait. I know a lot of people have said Danico Autry. They reworked his deal, so I don't know if it makes as much sense for them to trade a guy like Autry. But Settle, somebody who had a really good year last year, is probably going to be looking for a contract extension, a new contract after this year. Unless, if he goes off this year, you'll probably let him walk in free agency. So instead of that, you get a couple guys in return with Michael Mayer and Trey Taylor. You go ahead and give up Tim Settle, and you also give up a 2026 4th-round pick in that trade. So somewhat, maybe I was going to do a 5th-round pick, but the Texans don't have a 5th-round pick next year. So I went with one of our 4th-round picks. We have 2 in this next year's draft. Before we get into some more of those trade targets, insane deal I got for you. $69 hoodie. Was $69. Now only $27. All you got to do, go to chatsports.com/HOU massive sale and check out all of the options. They have it in red, gray, and navy. Like I said, more than half off. Was $69, now $27. This link, chatsports.com/HOU massive sale, will be in the comment section and description of today's video. Go check it out today. It is maybe the best deal on the internet right now. All right, let's go to another tight end trade option in Cole Kmet. And I do have to say, our Bears host, Harrison Graham, said, I don't think the Bears are interested in trading Cole Kmet at all, which, okay. But whenever I was doing some research, whenever I was looking at some different options, Cole Kmet was in every single Bleacher Report, ESPN, Athletic, whatever. Whenever they're talking about trade options, Cole Kmet comes up with the Bears. So I was like, you know what? Screw what Harrison says. I'm going to add him in the video anyways. He had a good, start to his career, earned a contract extension with the Chicago Bears, but seems to be falling down their depth chart just a little bit. He's the Bears tight end 2 at this moment, but you can see steady production over the past 4 seasons for Cole Kmet. Now, obviously, with Caleb Williams, they probably want to keep some, options for him there, but the Bears went ahead and drafted Colston Loveland early on in the draft this year. So that looks like he's kind of replacing Cole Kmet. Now, this is going to be the most hefty price the Texans are going to have to pay. One, because Cole Kmet, I think, is a good tight end. And two, he's on the younger side. He's on the right side of 30, and he already has his contract extension. So you have control over Cole Kmet for multiple years. It would be Cole Kmet, and the Texans would send the Bears a second-round pick in the 2026 NFL draft. Maybe the steepest price the Texans would have to pay in a long shot. But since it's the long shot, you're going to have to do a home run swing, and that's why this is the most expensive trade package that I'm going to put on today's video for looking at tight ends. I know what everybody's going to say in the comment section. Jeremy, you didn't add Kyle Pitts? You didn't add Kyle Pitts to the trade packages? I did not add Kyle Pitts, and this is why. I looked at their depth chart. It makes no sense for the Falcons to trade Kyle Pitts at this moment. Maybe at the deadline, if the team's looking bad and they're kind of in the tank mode, looking to get a top pick in this next year's draft, and they're just trying to kind of reboot. But right now, to start the year, why trade Kyle Pitts when he's your best option at tight end if you want to win a weaker division in the NFC South, if we're being honest? Everybody talks about the AFC South being a weak division. NFC South, not that much better. So I don't think the Falcons go ahead and trade Kyle Pitts, but just an honorable mention in today's video. So, producer Alper is going to roll through all of the trade ideas on today's show, and I want you to tell me, which of these ideas is your favorite? Is it trade 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or do you just hate all the trades that I put together on today's video? Let me know down in the comment section your thoughts on possibly trading for one of these tight ends. That's all I have for you on today's show, folks. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, you can do so at Jeremy Chuggs. My DMs are always open. And if you made it to the end of today's program, make sure you hit that subscribe button for free Texans content all year long. More watch parties to come. We have another watch party. Texans Week 2 preseason game up against the Carolina Panthers. C.J. Stroud versus Bryce Young. I think we'll get a couple snaps from both of them. Make sure you're there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications.